This episode is brought to you by United Airlines. When you want to make the most of your vacation, book with United. They're an airline that cares about your travels as much as you do. United is transforming the flying experience with Bluetooth connectivity, screens, power at every seat, and bigger overhead bins to help fit everyone's bag. And with their app, you can skip the bag check line, get live updates, and more. Change the way you fly. Book your next trip today at united.com.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. The holidays are here, and you know what that means. It's time to get your friends and family the gifts they deserve. Take the stress out of shopping with Amazon's great deals and low prices on a huge range of items from toys to tech and much more. Whoever you're gifting for, Amazon has great prices on everything you need this holiday season. Shop Black Friday week starting November 21st.
The holiday season officially starts when you get that first card in the mail. Shutterfly makes it easy to add more meaning to the everyday with hundreds of holiday card designs that can be personalized in seconds with your favorite photos from this year. Select your greeting, customize the color, and even add little extras like personalized foil to make a holiday card that really shines. Enjoy 40% off with code SMILE40 at Shutterfly.com and send something meaningful this year. See site for more details.
Hello, and welcome to Scare You to Sleep. I'm your host, Shelby Novak, and I'm here to read you a bedtime story. Before we begin, I wanted to thank you all once again for your patience and well wishes while I recover from my surgery. I appreciate you so much. Now, tonight I'd like to present a story I've been sitting on for a while now. It's an original of mine. I hope you enjoy. Limerence. I fell in love with a married man. That was my first mistake. My second was believing something I read on the internet. I know I've run out of time. I've exhausted every avenue of help I can find. I just wanted to tell someone before... Before what? I don't know. I actually have no fucking idea what is about to happen. It all started about a year ago. Last October. I was working at this print shop, mom and pop place. My boss was a gem. Really took a chance on me after the steakhouse I was waitressing at closed and I was left jobless. Print work was exciting too. I learned a lot about how to run all the machines and how to make those big billboards you see off the highway. Plus, the customers were way nicer to deal with than the assholes at the steakhouse ever were. And I didn't come home smelling like rendered fat and garlic every night. Anyway, you don't care about any of that. So, this guy, Theo Rustin. He owned a small business, a fancy pool installation company that would come in a couple times a year for various things. Signs, business cards, flyers, etc. He and my boss were good friends. Had been since high school. They were both like 9 or 10 years older than me, so they weren't exactly father figures or anything, but I looked up to both of them. I was inspired by these two hard-working men who had paved their own way. I loved to absorb whatever nuggets of knowledge they dropped in hopes to achieve my own dreams like that someday. More Theo than my boss, I admit. My boss had inherited the print shop from his old man. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but something about Theo truly building something from nothing always impressed the hell out of me. Plus, the pools he installed were So beautiful, so classy. Some of them looked like lagoons. He also had this beautiful family. I never met them, but from the pictures he had me include on the pamphlets for his business, they seemed amazing. Pretty wife, 2 cute kids. Looked like a perfect life. At first, as much as I admired him, I had no romantic feelings for him. Honestly, I didn't. He was a nice guy, and I hoped to have a life similar to his someday, but I didn't think much about him beyond our short interactions. In fact, he even annoyed me sometimes because he'd swing by on random days to pick up my boss to go to the batting cages or for an impromptu camping trip. I kind of got the gist he was avoiding home a little bit. Trouble in paradise? Maybe. I didn't care at the time. I only cared that when he did that, my boss would leave me to close up by myself. I hated closing alone. I'm kind of naturally a paranoid person, and the print shop was located in a very old building on a very old section of Main Street. It got a little seedy at night when nothing but the bars were open. So, when I'd see Theo's truck pull up around 7 p.m., I'd sigh and brace myself for the inevitable, "Hey Kaylee, mind closing up? We're gonna go hit some balls." Who was I to refuse? Plus, what would I say? I'm too big of a scaredy baby to close on my own? The drop-ins became more frequent. Annoying at first, but because sometimes my boss was on a call or busy with something, Theo would linger in the shop waiting for him. So we started to talk more casually. Before it was mostly about what font he wanted on his flyers, but it became about his day or his latest crazy client or something like that. I'd love to say we magically had a ton in common, but that wouldn't be true. We had basically nothing in common. I was a community college dropout with no real prospects or hobbies beyond watching those trashy reality shows on TLC. Theo was a business owner, a husband, and a father. He liked taking his boat out on the lake and working on the old Corvette he was restoring. He was successful and smart, and when I started to think about it, kinda handsome, too. Now is where I should talk about Drew. I was also in a relationship at the time. I was engaged to Drew Hunter, full name Andrew Timothy Hunter. I want you to know it. Because after a very long engagement, this motherfucker decides to not only cheat on me, but get his side piece pregnant. Oh, and that's not all. She was also a high school senior. Absolute disgusting piece of shit. Can you believe that? I only found out because the girl's father showed up at our apartment one day, pounding on the door so hard I thought he'd break it down. I called the cops because I was home alone and terrified. I had no idea why this man was screaming about wanting to murder my fiance. When the cops finally got there and calmed the guy down, they explained the whole situation to me. It was a whole embarrassing scene, especially when you live in a small town. One of the cops was my 4th grade teacher's son, that kind of small town. I wish Drew had been home. I wish that girl's dad would have killed him. I wouldn't have stopped him, had I known. That's for sure. When I'm in a relationship, I'm in it 100%. So I guess maybe that's what happened next. Once those blinders were off, suddenly, Theo started looking a lot more than kind of handsome. I understood why. He represented everything I wanted but couldn't have anymore. He was everything I wished Drew had been. Sorry, that was off topic. Anyway, so one day, my boss leaves early for a parent-teacher conference for one of his kids who was struggling a bit in school. I knew I would have to close up on my own, but It didn't bother me that night. It had only been a few days since my ex-fiancé had exploded my whole life, and I'll admit, I almost welcomed getting stabbed walking to my car that night. The whole town had found out what had gone on with Drew and that high school girl. I hadn't done anything wrong, but I still felt so humiliated. So I was not in the mood when I see familiar headlights show up in the front window. I had been holding back tears all day. I hadn't slept in 2 days. I hadn't eaten. I was a wreck. So when Theo walked through the door, I admit, I snapped at him. As soon as the bell chimed, I said, "He's not here. He had a parent-teacher conference for Richie." I can see him so clearly, walking through that door. He put his hands up in defense and said something like, "Whoa, okay." Despite my obvious signals for him to get the fuck out, he kept walking towards the counter I was standing behind. He explained his wife was out of town with the kids, and he just wanted to see if my boss wanted to grab some dinner at the diner out on Route 101. Yeah, well, he's not here, so I had wanted to say, so leave, but I trailed off, realizing that it probably wasn't a great idea to talk to my boss's best friend that way. He started to leave anyway, but turned back before he got to the door. "Hey, you like meatloaf? Because this place has the best meatloaf, and I promise I won't tell if you close up early." I protested, but I can't remember now what I said. I mumbled something, and I don't know, it was stupid. But I remember exactly what he said. "Come on, Kaylee. Don't make me eat alone." And I didn't. We went to the diner, and I ordered the meatloaf like he suggested. I don't even like meatloaf. We talked for hours. I finally told him thank you for inviting me and spilled my guts about my humiliating breakup. He admitted he had heard about it and commiserated with me about how mean and unfair small-town gossip can be. He told me about how when his parents divorced, he felt like a pariah because his dad had done something similar to my fiancé, though it was his secretary, not a high schooler. "So I still win the Pain Olympics," I said. He laughed and said, "Fair enough." I laughed too. It felt so good to laugh. And to finally eat, even if it was meatloaf. We even split a piece of pie. Peach pie. Which I actually did like a lot, thank God. It was the most intimate conversation I'd had in years. Afterwards, he dropped me back at my car. Before I got out of his truck, he touched my shoulder and said, "Hey, everything is going to be okay." Told me to get home safe. And drove away. Theo revived me that night. He fed me, reminded me there was joy in the world, and I went to bed full and happy, and for the first time in days, I slept like a baby. I woke up knowing that I had just had a once-in-a-lifetime connection with someone who was a part of my soul. Someone I had known in other lives, someone who would treat me right. I let myself fantasize about a life with him. It brought me comfort. Through the weekend and the coming days, I really let my imagination run wild, replaying every bit of our dinner, every moment, and every smile, and every laugh. He'd been so kind, so caring. In the days after, I saw Theo about the usual amount I did before. Every time he came in, I waited for him to acknowledge this incredible connection we had had that night at the diner, but he just didn't. Sure, it could be argued that he was just a nice guy who saw a woman struggling and thought she could use some kindness, but anyone who says that doesn't understand. You weren't there. We had a connection. After that, sometimes he would come to me and ask how I was doing before he called out for my boss. Those little moments, I knew they meant something. Maybe he was afraid of the connection we had that night. He had so much at stake. I understood that. I didn't want to throw myself at him like some kind of floozy, so I kept it polite and professional. I wanted him to lead the way. For months, he stayed polite. Our conversations became a little more familiar each time. Sometimes he'd say little things, and I swear it was like he was giving me a sign that his feelings matched mine. But he couldn't really say. Maybe he thought I didn't feel the same way. I'm sure you want examples, but they wouldn't make sense to you. You'd have to have been there for the tone and the look in his eyes. Otherwise, you'd think I was making something out of nothing. I started thinking about him constantly. Every hour, every minute, every second of the day. He consumed my thoughts. I dreamed about what our life would look like together. How great of a stepmom I'd be to his kids. How it would all begin with a passionate kiss when he couldn't hold back his feelings anymore. I convinced myself he was in a loveless marriage, and that's why he was always at my print shop. First to avoid home by seeing my boss, but now I knew it was because he wanted to see me. Even if he still had to pretend it was to see my boss to keep up appearances. One night, I popped 2 edibles and quickly downed a couple of Jack and Cokes. The feelings for Theo had become too intense. Earlier that day, he'd stopped by and brought me a donut. A donut. He said it was to make up for once again coming to grab my boss early. He'd never done that before. It threw me into a frenzy after they'd left work. I just stared at the greasy paper bag, wondering what he meant by it. And so, when I was home, both edibles and both drinks fully kicked into my system, I laid on the floor of my apartment and cried. I felt like if I couldn't have him, I would die. I'd never felt like this about someone before. I was desperate and so lovesick. My body physically hurt. It was almost as if Theo had cast a spell over me, I thought. And that's when I got my bright idea. I had remembered seeing a video about buying love spells on the internet. What an age we live in, huh? Witches are doing e-commerce now. So I did a little searching around. I found a lot of overly whimsical bullshit. These people did not understand the kind of love I had, and the kind of love I knew Theo was capable of. This was beyond love. I needed something more intense, more serious, harder. I needed more than lighting a pink candle and saying his name 10 times in a bath with rose petals floating in it. So, I made a post of my own, anonymously. I explained what I needed and my urgency to get it. And very quickly after I hit post, I passed out.
This episode is brought to you by United Airlines. When you want to make the most of your vacation, book with United. They're an airline that cares about your travels as much as you do. United is transforming the flying experience with Bluetooth connectivity, screens, power at every seat, and bigger overhead bins to help fit everyone's bag. And with their app, you can skip the bag check line, get live updates, and more. Change the way you fly. Book your next trip today at united.com.
The new Apple Watch Series 10 is here. It has the biggest display ever. It's also the thinnest Apple Watch ever, making it even more comfortable on your wrist. And it's the fastest charging Apple Watch, getting you 8 hours of charge in just 15 minutes. Introducing the all-new Apple Watch Series 10, now available for the first time in glossy jet black aluminum. Compared to previous generation, iPhone XS or later required. Charge time and actual results will vary.
Max Bankman, I'm the new doctor.
Welcome aboard the Odyssey.
ABC Thursdays.
This ship is heaven. We're tending to our passengers' dreams.
I'm in.
From 911 executive producer Ryan Murphy comes a splashy new drama on a luxury cruise ship with Joshua Jackson and Don Johnson.
It's your job to keep everyone alive.
She's in VFib. 1, 2, 3. Clear.
I have a pulse.
You're gonna be okay.
Dr. Odyssey. Thursdays, 9/8 Central on ABC and stream on Hulu.
I woke up the next day with a gnarly hangover. And when I looked at my phone, I saw I had several notifications. My post hadn't gone viral or anything, but I think it had like 22 comments. All of them discouraged me from finding what I was asking for. Some saying it wasn't possible, others saying it was possible, but it was dangerous and stupid. Some called me a troll, others offered some idiotic platitudes about loving myself. All of them useless. All but one. One user just said, "DM me." It could have been a bot, but I took my chances. By now you can see how desperate I was, right? So I did just that. It would be expensive, they said, but they did have a ritual and an incantation that would do what I needed. I had a very meager savings, but I drained it and sold some stuff online to make enough to send to this mystery person. Of course, the whole time I knew this could be a scam. But again, I was desperate. I wasn't in my right mind. And so, once the money was exchanged, I was sent exactly what I had paid for. I will not tell you what the ritual entailed. I won't tell you even a sentence of the incantations. I won't. It was a painful and difficult process. It was also disgusting, and it involved asking a favor of forces whose power I underestimated immensely. I admit, I also added in my own rituals I had cobbled together from the internet. I also didn't heed the warnings I had read, and instead of calling out to a specific deity or being, I called out requesting anyone who would listen, whatever being out there would hear me and grant my wishes. I thought, the more the merrier. I know. My time is running short. I can feel it. I have to hurry this up. I'm sorry. So, a couple of weeks after the ritual, nothing had happened. One winter evening, my boss had left early for a family thing. I was standing at the counter, putting together some orders that needed to be shipped out, lamenting my lost money and lost sanity, and contemplating driving my car into the nearby lake. When those familiar headlights showed up in the window, I blushed, even though Theo wouldn't know I just spent a ridiculous amount of money trying to make him love me. It still felt weird seeing him face to face after all that. He opened the door. I said hi and started to explain that his buddy wasn't in. But he silently turned, locked the door of the shop, and walked toward me. He grabbed me and kissed me so passionately. It was like something out of a movie. At the time, I saw a man floating on a cloud of love, but now, I see he was just a zombie, propelled by forces I had no business messing with. I'll give you a quick rundown of what happened after that. We started an incredible affair. It was romantic, and he bought me things and brought me places, and we ran around in secret. It was so thrilling, everything I thought I had wanted. This part was lovely for a while. Even now, I'll admit that. Having someone who has consumed your thoughts day and night finally return those same passionate feelings, it was indescribable. But after a few months of running around, I realized it wasn't exactly the fairy tale I had in mind. We didn't become deeply intertwined in any sort of cerebral way. It was mostly physical, and there was no sign of him leaving his wife. He was also starting to get a bit sloppy. He started showing up at my apartment, dropping by the shop every time he knew my boss wasn't in, and walking me to my car, even kissing me in the parking lot. As you can imagine, all of it led to someone in town finding out. And the game of telephone eventually made its way back to me in the form of a very embarrassing phone call from my own mother. I denied the whole thing, said people were just trying to stir up trouble, that it was probably my ex just spreading fake rumors. The next morning, when I got to work, things got worse. My boss confronted me. He told me he had heard the rumors himself, and when he pressed Theo about it, Theo had confessed everything. I never realized until that moment how devastated I'd be seeing that man be so disappointed in me. He said, "You know, I haven't been just his friend all these years. I love his wife and kids like they were my own flesh and blood. And I can't stand by and watch you help destroy that." When I realized what he meant by that, I said, "You're firing me? But he's just as guilty. I'm single and a decade younger than him. How am I more at fault than he is?" He answered, "Well, I can't fire him, but I can do my part in not facilitating this affair. I couldn't look his wife in the eyes if I kept you around, knowing what was going on." And looking back, that was totally fair. I didn't think so at the time, of course, but I see it now. I called Theo to come over to my apartment and had it out with him. I told him I didn't want to do this anymore, that he was never leaving his wife for me, and now, because of this stupid affair, I was jobless and had lost the respect of someone who I admired so much. I also had half the town side-eyeing me every time I stepped out my front door. He promised he would take care of things and we could be together. But at that point, I didn't want it anymore. I didn't want him. He wasn't who I thought he was. We had nothing in common. We didn't have conversations. We had sex. We had obsession. This wasn't a relationship. I had let things go too far. I told him all that. Maybe it was harsh, but it was true. He told me I didn't mean it. He said he couldn't let me go. He said it felt like he would die without me. All the things I had felt about him just a few months before. He looked crazed. It scared me. I told him to leave or I'd call the police. So he did. He slammed the door so hard on the way out, I thought it would fall off its hinges. I contacted the person who had sent me the ritual, asking for advice. I admitted what I had done with the additional spells and things. They said they could send some suggestions, but they had no idea what I was up against. They warned me that the original spell I had requested was as serious as I had hoped for originally, and breaking it would be almost impossible, especially since they had no idea what I had done in my freestyle remix of deities and rituals. Their only advice was to try distance. Sometimes getting far away would help break up things. I endured a few more weeks of stares and glares. I couldn't get a job anywhere, and Theo had begun stalking my every move. He kept sitting in the parking lot of my building, leaving me letters, showing up when I was at the post office or the grocery store. He never approached me. He just watched me, like a wildcat watching its prey. It was somehow worse than having a trashy lover's spat in public. It made me so afraid. I had no idea what he had in mind. One day, I received a phone call from an unknown number. It was him. He said it was time. Time for us to be together. Forever. I don't know what it was about that call, but I packed up a suitcase, got in my car, and drove. I drove until I was 3 counties over to the closest decent-sized city. It was like I was being compelled by some sort of primal instinct. I knew I needed to get away, far away. That's how I ended up in an extended stay motel. I figured I'd stay there until things blew over. Give Theo time to cool off. Maybe the internet witch was right, and distance would break up the spell. For a few weeks, things felt calmer. I had convinced myself that maybe the distance was working, so I would just stick it out until another week or so and go back. I did some delivery driving to make money. That's what I was doing when I got yet another call from my mother that changed the course of my life. She wanted to let me know that she wanted. I never meant for anyone to get hurt, okay? I thought he'd fall in love with me and get a divorce or something, or we'd have some romantic whirlwind affair that we would take to our graves. Why did he kill the children? What did they even have to do with this? They weren't in the way. He killed all of them. The neighbors discovered them. They went to check when they heard the fire alarm and saw smoke coming out of the front door that had been left ajar. His wife was in the kitchen. She'd been in the middle of making dinner, and it was burning and had caught on fire in the oven. The kids. One was in the living room. One was in her room. According to the police, he was nowhere to be found. But in my bones, I knew exactly where he was. Or at least where he was headed. I prayed he wouldn't find me. How could he? At this random motel in the middle of a city? The only weapon I owned was a claw hammer my ex had left in my trunk. So I started sleeping with it. Not that I slept much. I got home late one night from making deliveries. I had taken to carrying the hammer with me in the loop of my bag. I walked into my hotel room, shut the door, and that's when I heard him. Kaylee was all he got out before I swung the hammer around. It made contact with his temple and he stumbled. With his head down, I hit him again in the back of it as hard as I could. When he fell, I kept hitting and hitting and hitting until he stopped twitching. He wasn't a very big man, but I'm not very strong. So moving his body to my trunk was incredibly difficult. I waited until late at night, wrapped him in a comforter, and thank God I am at the ground level. I backed my car right up to my door, and as quick as I could, got him in the trunk. I dumped him in a swampy area outside the city. No, it wasn't my best plan. Yes, I should have called the police, but this hasn't exactly been my confessions about how rational and smart of a person I am, has it? It doesn't matter how I reacted. Because he fucking came back. He comes back every night, looking worse and worse. He doesn't even have a face anymore. I had made sure of that. But he somehow appears everywhere I am. I see him in the corner of the room, behind me in the mirror when I'm brushing my teeth, in the back seat of my car. He just watches, just like he used to. Still the predator, and I am the prey. I don't know what he's waiting for. I don't know what he's going to do. I can't get away from him. No matter where I go, he's driving me insane. The online witch won't answer me anymore. Just said I'm on my own and not to contact them. I thought maybe I could learn to live with it. But it never gets easier to see. And last night he touched me. Just barely, but he did. I felt his dirt-caked fingers brush my face. I woke to him standing over me. He's getting closer. I can't stay awake forever. And no matter where I try to go, he's there. I've moved hotels. I moved to my mom's for a bit. I tried sleeping in my car. Nothing works. I can't escape him. I'm recording this because I have a feeling tonight is the last night. Tonight, he'll get me. I haven't decided what would be better. Doing the job myself, or waiting for my punishment from him, from the mess I made. Maybe it'll be quick. Maybe there is a heaven, and I'll end up there. But something tells me that when the spell said forever, it meant forever. Goodbye. Thanks for listening, and This is the part where I always say thank you to my author. That was me. So thank you, me. If you like the show, please follow it on social media. It really helps me out when you give me a follow. So go to Instagram or Twitter or Facebook at scareyoutosleep. If you'd like to follow my personal account, you can do that too. And it's at Shelby Novak. But yeah, thank you so much. I got an influx of followers in the last couple weeks on like Instagram, and I really appreciate that. Again, it helps me out a lot. It just, unfortunately, in this climate we're in, it helps when you have more Instagram followers to get to do cool things, and so I really appreciate it. I'm trying to get to 10,000 on Instagram, which sounds so silly to say out loud, but I am, for various reasons. And because unfortunately, like I said, some things are gate kept if you are under a certain amount of Instagram followers. Like, it's really weird. I wanted to say next week, please keep an eye out on social media, and I will announce it on the show as well. I'm going to be starting a limited edition merch line with a very special design on it. I haven't had an artist do it. It's really, really cool. I cannot wait for you guys to see it. I wanted to give you a heads up. I'm going to be running it again. It's only going to be run for 20 days for you to be able to order this really neat design. And so please keep an eye out for that. And also, not to beat around the bush, anything you buy from that is going to help me with my new medical bills a whole lot, because for those of you who haven't heard my ramble on Patreon where I explained more about my surgery, which feel free to go to. I believe I clicked it so I've been trying to make some more of the bonus episodes on Patreon where you can it's like a one-off. You can just go buy just that episode if you'd like. And that Patreon has that ability now. So I believe that's one if you don't want to have another subscription on your hands. I think you can go just listen to that if you purchase it. And but anyway, I explained more about my surgery. It was an emergency surgery. Again, I went into all this in the ramble, so I'm not going to bore you all with it now, but it was an emergency. This was not planned. So those emergency room bills are about to hit, and they're about to hit me hard. And thank you again, as I said up top, and I said last week for my bonus, or for my feed drop, which thank you, if I doubt they're listening, but to my friends Pacific Obadiah and John Grills for allowing me to do a feed drop for Creepy Places, because again, if I didn't have it, wasn't able to put some of my Halloween stuff up. I'm still going to have an RSLE episode. I'm still going to do Funeral Home Part 2. Those will just be in the hopefully next week, but I'm recovering, and on top of recovering, I've had a lot of work to catch up on and obligations in these next few weeks that I made, because I thought, hey, Halloween will be over and November would be a great time to schedule some new stuff, some other opportunities in my career, and did not anticipate having a man down. And when you're a one-man crew, having a man down is a big deal. So thank you for everything. Again, I'll announce that limited edition merch next week. For those of you who streamed the feed drop last week, I know it's not ideal, but thank you so much, because any listens count. All my new Patreon subscribers, thank you so much. I again went into it on the ramble. I'm just a little bit, again, worried about these medical bills, and I appreciate any love you've given. I'm being really awkward now, but I'm just trying to say thank you for all of that, because it makes me feel a little less scared, especially because Halloween is my bread and butter time, and I missed the entire last week of Halloween content, and so that was a little bit scary. I was laying in the hospital just oh, great. So what are you going to do? Anyway, let's talk about nicer things. I have not baked anything. I can't eat much right now, so I haven't baked. So no baking corner this week. Maybe next week, but I'm not going to make any promises. In fact, actually, you know what? Instead of baking corner, let's celebrate first meal I had yesterday that made me not want to throw up immediately corner. So yay for the sandwich I cobbled together with a rotisserie chicken. And I went to the grocery store. That was a big thing too. So that's great. Yay for me getting back on my feet and all my organs getting used to their missing pal. Let's get it together, guys, because mama's got to work. That's basically what I've been telling my body for the last couple weeks. But for those of you who are worried, who don't have Patreon, thank you. I just want to let you know I'm feeling much better. You know, recovering from surgery is never fun, but I had not talked about it a lot on the show, but I had been having a lot of issues which I didn't know was because of a faulty gallbladder, but I had been having a lot of discomfort and a lot of issues leading up to that. And so I'm actually feeling a lot better in a lot of ways afterwards. And I have a bunch of cool new scars all over my stomach. So there's that. Hope dudes are into the Frankenstein look, because man, one of them, especially I think pretty sure it's the one they actually took the gallbladder out of. It's pretty gnarly. So we'll see how that heals, see how that goes in the summer when I'm in a bathing suit. Anyway, let's see. I'm not going to talk long. This is already kind of long, but not as long as some of them have been. But I'm going to go rest now. And I apologize for this being late. I know you're going to be like, don't apologize. But I've been just, again, I kind of sleep a lot. Sleep helps your body heal. So there have been times where I've been trying to get this story done because it was one I started a while back. Like I said, I've been sitting on it, and it's because it was unfinished for a long time. And so I've been trying to get this story done for the last few days, and I kept falling asleep because, my body's just weird right now. It's just weird. I went from being very active to not being able to really move for a few days, and that threw me through a loop. But I am back now, and I cannot thank you enough. Okay, I'm going to go. Oh, if you have any stories you'd like to submit to the show, send them to scareyoutosleep@gmail.com. And let's see what else. Oh, that includes true stories. Just put in the subject line whether it's a true story or fictional story submission. I'd appreciate it. Again, sorry to those of you who I have not gotten around to your stories. I have been busy after surgery or in surgery. So yeah, again, if you want to hear the story, it's on Patreon. I'm going to go. I'm just rambling now. Oh, this is the whole point of this last part. It's called the ramble. I'm not even on pain meds anymore. I know I sound crazy like I am on pain meds. I'm just out of practice of all this. Okay, I'm going to go. I love you so much. You have no idea. I feel your love. I'm sending your love. I'm so sorry. I do want to say I apologize for not being able to get back to all of the messages I got. I did not anticipate the literally hundreds of messages I got from all of you, thousands of likes. By the way, thank you so much to everyone who liked the Instagram post my mother posted of me in the hospital. I gave her an update of how many likes it got, and she goes, "I'm a star." So thank you for making my mom feel like a star. I appreciate it. So I'm going to go. All right. I love you. Enough from me. Go drink your water. Go get some sleep. Sweet dreams.
Do you read Stephen King? Good news, there's a club for you. The Losers Club. Every Friday, us losers journey through the never-ending wastelands of King's Dominion. We sink our teeth into each of King's novels, dive deep into the lore, and review every adaptation. Even better, we're always having guests over. Thomas Jane, Will Wheaton, Mary Lambert, Mick Garris, the list goes on. So what are you waiting for? Join us as we read on through long days and pleasant nights.
Hi, friends. Do you like capitalism? Or did that word give you the creeps right down to your spine? Well, Okay, you've rehearsed it 500 times now. These people don't care about all that. All they want, they just want to be entertained. So fucking entertain them, man. Just do, say things. Tell them there's a sale or something. They like sales, right? Sales are good. Everybody loves a good sale, I feel like.
Come on, how many times this is for bloody disgusting. We have to do this the right way.
Tell them all the answers to life's problems are there in your show, in our show. Me and us as a 18-hour show. Tell them all that. Tell them that there's a new show coming through that they might like. They all know everything's just a giant joke anyway.
Come listen to Wireland Ranch, now on Bloody FM, and catch up now, friends, because our new ritual, The Dope Show, is on the way, and I promise you've never heard anything else like it.